guess it comes down to a simple choice, really. Get busy living, or get busy dying.
You are now listening to the Bitcoin Profits Podcast, coming to you live.
This is not financial advice.
Oh yeah, dude.
Q.
Trace?
This is not financial advice. This is just three young men sharing some information that they feel may be valuable to anyone choosing to listen to this. Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, back to just hanging out.
Let's talk about Bitcoin at all-time high and potentially going further.
Well,
Or actually, we knew that was going to happen. But yeah, Trump definitely helps.
Trump definitely helps.
Short term.
It's funny because it's like Bitcoin's good for everybody, even your enemies.
Right.
So
It just shows you the media and how it brainwashes people.
Yeah.
Trad media.
Trad media.
but it was also cool because Bitcoin knew Trump won before everybody else.
Ooh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Bitcoin's running, and everybody's like, what's going on?
Yeah.
Trump's leading, but then Bitcoin jumps to 75K.
True.
Yeah, I would say the markets absolutely front ran that election, and it was clear. Like the public had already decided they knew who the winner was going to be, and Bitcoin's price reflected that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know all of Trump versus Kamala's policies, but after Trump being elected, the next 2 days, this Wednesday, Thursday, and a little bit today.
No, that's literally just the public reacting to something major that had happened, and the public clearly felt like it was better for the economy and that it was a suitable time to enter the market.
I mean, in fact, we can all say I was RFK.
Yeah. We could
RFK was Team Orange.
Yeah, we could definitely set the record straight and say that the biggest person we could support is RFK in this situation.
But then that Trump has kind of RFK on his team,
Right.
and Trump is the orange man.
Smart move.
He is the orange man.
It's obviously good for Bitcoin.
He is an orange man.
Yeah. Maybe an Oompa
I never
Loompa.
made that correlation.
But yeah, I don't know. Like, there's going to be a lot of people watching this thinking like, oh my gosh, we're Trumplicans. They just love Trump. Like, they're just happy Bitcoin ran up because Trump got elected. Blah, blah, blah. Like, I don't know. How can we let people know that, like, that's not how we looked at this at all?
Without saying we're anarchists,
Yeah.
if we go any further, it's going to be pretty obvious that I'm an anarchist.
Yeah, we're just Bitcoiners. We don't mess with politics.
True.
It's tough to say though, because if Bitcoin is everybody, then there still has to be some sort of organization on top of it. Like,
Yeah, not the political organizations we have right now.
no, not at all.
But I guess that segues, whatever we just talked about, into you can't really ignore Bitcoin anymore because we are a pro-Bitcoin country now. The biggest pro-Bitcoin country.
Cynthia Loomis?
Cynthia?
Cynthia Loomis? She has her proposal for I don't know, I think it's the next 5 years, like stacking 200,000 Bitcoin a year until they get to 1 million Bitcoin.
So yeah, actually, we can talk about that because the government is now a buyer of Bitcoin. Like we know that they're going to buy Bitcoin if that goes through, and Sailor. Or MSTR. So those two, we know for sure they have a future plan of we're going to buy this much Bitcoin, and they're telling everyone we want to do this.
Mm-hmm.
And let's just talk about how the floor price.
Like, that's like how that jump starts game theoretical nation state
For
adoption.
Sure.
Yeah, I was thinking about this because we're talking about two monetary systems that both exist. But now that, I don't know, because now it's like, okay, we're talking about government holding Bitcoin. That's different than the Fed holding Bitcoin. So if the government wants to hold their Bitcoin, they can pay down their debt with the Fed as these monetary systems go in opposite directions. Does that extend the life cycle of the Fed? Like, does that? I think that extends fiat.
I can see that.
Well, yeah, because if they can figure out a way to start paying off debt, then yeah, that means that they're backing up their paper money and they're letting it be able to be used more.
But it's them extending it so that they are losing power. The Fed will be losing power.
They're extending their off ramp. But like, if they can figure out a way to start adopting Bitcoin into their reserve strategy, it's like their off ramp gets way longer, and they can kind of slowly wean off of dollars.
Well, then they're not even paying. They wouldn't be paying the Fed Bitcoin. They would be selling Bitcoin for dollars and then paying the Fed dollars.
Yeah, and the Fed will probably be like, "Oh, sweet, we gotta get rid of it."
Yeah. Well, okay.
Well, do you think the Fed wants Bitcoin?
Yeah, but
So you think that we're just gonna say, "Oh, national debt, cancel, everybody, we're on a Bitcoin standard"?
it's so weird to think about, because why can't the US government just say, no, we're not giving you any of the money, Fed?
Of the Bitcoin they hold?
No, of the 35 trillion of debt that the US government is to the Fed.
No.
Because the Fed is not government. They're not federal. They're literally just a private cartel, banking cartel.
Yeah, I think the more the government buys Bitcoin, the Fed is just losing power. And they will not be able to control what they can control right now.
It's weird to even conceptualize, because these are like behind the scenes. We don't know who is pulling these strings on either side, and what if they're the same person or the same group of people, whatever.
Right. Sure. Could be.
Okay, so we can circle back to that, like what the Fed is actually going to do and what the government plans to do with the Fed and pay down the debt, and how accumulating Bitcoin can allow them to pay down the debt. But then do they even need to pay down the debt? Because who is the Fed? Are we the US government? The Fed is not part of government. So we have to start the conversation with, what is money?
Well, let me ask you, would you care if everyone just said, let's cancel the debt?
No.
You wouldn't care.
No.
I wouldn't either.
Huh.
So let's do
Who
it.
would? Who would care?
If everyone's on a Bitcoin standard, who would care?
It's almost like it's going to dissolve
just
anyways.
Like looking at the past. Like, get over the past. Let's look forward.
So that's why we're posing the question, what is money? Because it's not currency. It's not fiat. Or fiat is used as a medium of exchange. But then the idea that money is limited to currency that is printed by the Federal Reserve is a falsehood.
Yeah, and I think we just need to make it clear that fiat currency is not backed by anything. You can't really just say like, oh, fiat's backed by the government, or fiat's backed by the military, or fiat's backed by fiat hasn't been backed by gold since 1971, and they've been weaning off of it since 1933. What's backing fiat currency is the public's trust in the ability that the government can control the flow of the currency. So we've all just basically been forced to subscribe to giving all the responsibility to this Federal Reserve, that they can basically control the flow of currency, meaning like they're controlling our lives. So like this election, no matter how many people want to overreact and like be dramatic over what just happened, it doesn't matter. It's just another episode in this reality TV show we're all living as American citizens.
No, yeah, facts. Money, like the problem, fix the money, fix the world. The problems start with the money, not political candidates.
Yeah.
So then, where we sit today is we have two monetary systems that currently exist simultaneously. Like, I don't know how many times I've like brought up the fact that Bitcoin exists, and then like even my dad, he's like, oh, well, it could be 100 years before the world adopts Bitcoin. Or, well, probably not 150, but what if it takes 100?
I mean,
And
to me, I don't care. I'll be 100 years early.
Yeah, sounds like my great-grandkids are going to think I'm the freaking smartest person on planet Earth.
right, does that just mean we're earlier and richer? Like, either way, they both currently exist. That's the reality. It's not like 150 years from now something might exist. No, this is right now and they both exist. So now it becomes a decision. It's a choice for everybody. Which one do you choose to subscribe to? And we already know which one's going to accumulate the majority of the world's wealth because they're moving in opposite directions and accelerating in their paths.
Yeah. And this is where we'll insert the image of housing prices going up in dollars and going down in Bitcoin.
Well, yeah, but the way that works is, so it's easy to say that Bitcoin is going to take over the world's money. Bitcoin's the next evolution of money. And like for us, we've done the research and we've understood that that is a fact. Like that is what's happening. And it doesn't necessarily matter what people think about it.
Yeah.
Because they both exist, they're both moving in opposite directions, and they're both perpetuating each other and accelerating in opposite directions. So whatever anybody thinks about that can be up to them, but that's the reality.
Yeah, no matter what happens in the human world, Bitcoin will be Bitcoin. Tick tock. Next block.
Time is ticking.
So then let's compare these two.
Well, let's go. Should we go back to your what is money?
Yeah, we are. Because
why do we even value anything?
I think we need to stay focused on the two monies.
Okay.
And let's compare them so then we can make an honest, rational decision about which one we think is better.
Okay.
Yeah, let's go through. Let's weigh out the pros and cons, shall we?
Yeah, that's a good idea. So first of all so the idea that Bitcoin is Bitcoin and it'll never change. So maybe we should start with the supply because we should start with why we don't want it to change.
Let's start somewhere.
Yeah, we can start somewhere.
Yeah, fixed supply. I mean, I can say that is what I realized about Bitcoin is, I realized, why do we value things? Usually it's because they're scarce.
Yeah.
And I realized the only thing on earth that we truly know is an absolute truth is that we die one day, which means time is the only thing other than Bitcoin, 21 million Bitcoin now. Time is the only true scarce thing on earth. So I value my time and energy more than anything. And I put my time and energy into money when I go and work. And if whoever controls my money prints more, they are wasting my time and energy on earth. That simple Austrian economics, that's what got me into Bitcoin.
So when we're comparing fiat to Bitcoin and we're saying fiat has an infinite supply with a centralized authority that gets to dictate what the supply is. Like today, Jerome saying, hey, we're going to cut rates by 25 basis points. Oh, and if the president says that he wants me to step down, well, he can't.
Hi, Victoria Guido with Politico. Some of the president-elect's advisors have suggested that you should resign. If he asked you to leave, would you go?
No.
Can you follow up on, do you think that legally you're not required to leave?
No. To follow up on Victoria's question, do you believe the president has the power to fire or demote you, and has the Fed determined the legality of a president demoting at will any of the other governors with leadership positions?
Not permitted under the law.
Not what?
Not permitted under the law.
I won't. I don't even know what that even, like, obviously.
Not legal.
I don't even know what that even means. But then we have Bitcoin. Bitcoin has the fixed supply of 21 million. So
Another absolute truth.
So it's an absolute scarcity. And this is the first absolute scarcity that humanity's ever encountered in a monetary instrument.
Right.
Because like you could say, okay, well, there's only one Mona Lisa. Yeah, that's true.
Yep.
But everybody in the world can't have a piece of the Mona Lisa and use it as a transactable money.
I could also argue that AI could perfectly replicate Mona Lisa pretty soon.
Yeah, probably.
True.
I mean, it still wouldn't be the same thing, but
Why not?
because one's physical.
Well, AI could connect it to a painting machine or whatever.
Yeah, well, I guess.
I think that what's his name? Tim? That's what he was
Tim
talking about
Scott,
today.
maybe was his name?
Yeah. AI, like who's gonna know the difference between art made by AI and a human?
Yeah, I mean, if Bitcoin has a fixed supply of 21 million and everything else in the world you can create more of, including fiat currency, then when we're denominating the world in Bitcoin, as the world gets bigger, one Bitcoin over time purchases more of the world's wealth, because more wealth is being created every day.
Which this automatically puts the gold argument to rest, because as much as you think gold is a scarce and finite asset, it's not. You can always go dig another hole and find more gold.
Right.
When the demand for gold increases, the supply will increase because people will go out and find more gold.
Yep.
So Bitcoin's on a fixed supply release schedule that ends at 21 million. Once 21 million Bitcoin are in circulation, there will never be more. There's 19,500,000 in circulation now, and the last 1.5 million Bitcoins will be added to circulation over the next 116 years.
Yep.
So that being said, this is why Bitcoin is the greatest store of value technology humanity's ever encountered, is because it can't be diluted. Mm-hmm. No matter how many people want Bitcoin, it's on a fixed supply release schedule that caps at 21 million. We've never seen that before.
It inherently becomes more and more scarce as time goes on. Like, we're not even at a point where a block reward is less than 1 Bitcoin yet. Like, a block reward still yields 3.125 Bitcoin. Like, in the next 8 years, the block reward is going to be less than 1 Bitcoin going into circulation every 10 minutes. So, like, the supply on exchange, like, forget being able to buy 10 Bitcoin at a time on an exchange. Like, obviously you got to be a heavy hitter to even do that now. But in 8 years, you're not going to be able to do that, especially for a price under $100,000 per Bitcoin. There's just no way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean.
Well, and then so this is all like stuff why we value Bitcoin, and like you add all of this on just how we value things in terms of scarcity and fixed supply, on top of debt-based stealing purchasing power system, and people just want to get out of it. They don't even have to know, like, now they know that there's this solution because we're putting it in front of their face, but the will to just get out of that system is enough for people.
Mm-hmm.
And then you add all of this on top of Bitcoin, or on top of that old system. Just how can people ignore it?
If you're really that upset about where the government is heading, is like, well, you can literally opt out of participating in the government's economy
And supporting it.
whenever you want. Like, at the drop of a hat, you could be like, well, well, I'm going to buy a bunch of Bitcoin and no longer support the US government anymore. That's what I would suggest. Like, put your money where your mouth is. If you really don't like the government that much, opt out.
Yeah, I mean, and then just based off, because we're talking about it's your choice, like invest in what you believe in. If you believe in a debt-based stealing system, then go support that. If you believe in a much better system, a fixed supply, a system that will create abundance for humanity, and you believe in the goodness of people and you believe that we have a bright future, then invest in that.
For
Put
where
your
your
money where your mouth is.
For where your treasure is, there will your heart be also. Matthew 6:21.
Mhm.
So what we're describing is two monetary systems. One is a fiat monetary system with a centralized authority that has the ability to print infinite amounts of fiat currency. The other is a decentralized system that is incorruptible, that nobody can dilute or inflate, manipulate, with a max supply of 21 million. Does that not seem obvious on where is the best monetary system to subscribe to?
While we're on this too, I think a question that pops up a lot in people that haven't found Bitcoin, or at least don't believe in it, they would say, well, Uncle Sam, when they find this out, they're just going to figure out how to destroy it. So let's talk about how it cannot be destroyed. They cannot change it. It's not only this great system we're talking about, monetary system that we're talking about, but it's a monetary system that the old one cannot destroy.
Can't even compete.
Like, I'm sure that people have tried to do this. I'm sure we could find some examples. Like, I'm sure I think there was like e-gold before Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Yeah, but like they find it out and then they destroy it because they want to continue their system.
Yeah, like if humans have the ability to take control, then they will.
Yeah, all of the history of all currencies controlled by a central controller / government, they have printed more / minted, increased the supply of.
That's the biggest problem, is creating a monetary system where humans don't have the ability to manipulate.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what Bitcoin represents, is the first time that we've had a system that humans no longer have the ability to create more of, because every time that they could, like it seems like if we could print money and buy everything that we wanted, that somebody would do that. So the way it works is Bitcoin was the line of code. The code was written by Satoshi Nakamoto. Satoshi Nakamoto said, hey guys, check this out. And then
Let's make clear that's a pseudonym for, we don't know.
Pseudonym for...
Yeah, we don't actually know.
Yeah, we don't actually know who the actual entity was that created Bitcoin or who wrote the code.
Completely anonymous.
But when people saw the code, they were like, holy crap, like this could be the solution that we've been looking for money for the history of the entire world. So people caught on to it and it kind of flew onto the radar, because if like the Fed knew that Bitcoin would be in the position that Bitcoin's in now,
oh my gosh,
the Fed would never let that happen, because they would have had the ability to destroy it. But because nobody knew what Bitcoin was, it grew to the size to where it became sufficiently decentralized to where nobody can control it.
Mm-hmm.
So each of these computers that are contributing to Bitcoin's network, they have to run the same line of code. It's like a language.
Which, and speaking of this language, it's the most complex, like it's completely written. Like this line of code doesn't even make sense if you're a genius code writer. Like it's so uniquely complex that it can't be replicated.
No, like you could replicate the code. Like the code's actually, it's not that many lines of code, and I think it's C++. Like you could literally copy and paste and create your own Bitcoin,
Yeah.
but the incentive for anybody else to contribute to your Bitcoin rather than the Bitcoin where they know they're going to get compensated for their resources.
Yeah.
Like it's just a logical conclusion. Like, oh, if I use your Bitcoin, Trace Bitcoin, then I'm probably just going to spend all my money and give it to Trace.
Yeah.
We'll get into that later.
But so all of the computers, they run the code that is what we could call like English. Like if we want to communicate with each other, we're speaking English. And if you start speaking Spanish, I'm not going to know what you're saying.
Nor do I want to speak Spanish.
Well, I kind of want to learn Spanish.
Well, I mean, like, because the rest of the world is using English, it is more convenient to learn English.
Well, yeah. So the point is, like, if all of Bitcoin's computers are running the same code, then they have the ability to communicate with each other. But as soon as somebody wants to change the code, then they're no longer running on the same software as everybody else, and they're no longer communicating with anybody.
Not a participant.
So the security of Bitcoin comes from the decentralization of the network and how all of these computers and the number of the computers and the amount of energy it takes to run 100% of the network is so large that it's inconceivable for any individual entity or person or party that wanted to destroy Bitcoin. It's so large that nobody could gather 51% of the resources needed in order to change the code on 51% of the computers running the network.
There's no point. You're literally wasting your time and energy.
Yeah, so not only is it inconceivable, but if you tried to do it, you would fail, but also all of the resources that you spent to try and destroy it would be wasted.
And then there's the incentive of everyone protecting it too.
Yeah, so instead of, like, why would you spend all of these resources to try and attack it when...
Could be making it better.
Yeah, when that's just going to go worthless, when you could take all of those resources and positively contribute to it, which actually returns Bitcoin, returns value.
Yeah.
So that incentive system is what grew the network and is what continues to exponentially grow the network.
And there's more, but like those are the main ones.
Yeah.
Well, and then I feel like this argument's kind of been dying out lately, but then there's the side of it where it's like, well, what if there's a nuclear fallout, and what if the EMPs, and what if there's no more energy and there's no more internet and da-da-da, and it's like, well, even if it really were to get to that worst case scenario, doomsday apocalypse type of scenario, it's not going to matter how much gold you have. It's not going to matter how much oil you have. It's not going to, like, you better just hope you have the means to defend yourself.
Food and water.
Yeah.
Shelter.
And you know what? If that apocalypse scenario happens, I'll die going out knowing that I was trying to make the future
Do
brighter.
good, yeah.
Exactly.
But then in that scenario, it's like, okay, let's survive. Let's focus on surviving. Screw Bitcoin, screw fiat. Let's survive. And then when we survive and when we can turn the power back on, Bitcoin picks up right where it left off.
Yeah.
So the point being, we have Bitcoin. There's a fixed supply of 21 million. It's the first time we've ever seen that. Nobody can change the fixed supply of 21 million. And given the fact that everything else in the world, as humans create, everything else in the world is increasing in supply. So at the same time that everything in the world is increasing in supply, Bitcoin stays capped at 21 million, meaning over time, one Bitcoin purchases more wealth.
Yeah.
Its purchasing power is increasing over time, no matter what anybody says about it.
Yeah, and then that just perfectly illustrates how, like, yeah, everything might be going up in supply, but like dollars, you can guarantee that that's been going up in supply more than just about anything else. And that's why your dollar is losing so much purchasing power in the past 5 years alone. It's because in the past 5 years, the Federal Reserve has decided to print 80% of the amount of circulating supply of US cash.
And because everything is priced in dollars, including Bitcoin, when you hold Bitcoin and it's priced in dollars, and people are still buying it because of dollars, using dollars, when they print more, your Bitcoin dollar amount goes up.
And I mean,
Win-win.
and we can put up the M2 money supply, we can put up global liquidity graph, but it's undeniable when global liquidity is increasing, when the amount of fiat is increasing, Bitcoin's price increases every time.
So these are two exponential curves going in different directions. The dollar is exponentially increasing in the amount of dollars that they need to create in order to keep the system going. Like when the velocity of money is down to the point where it's at now, that means each dollar that they create makes less of an impact on the GDP.
Okay.
And they need GDP to go up so that they can pay off old debt with new money, with dollars that are nominally increasing. So they can make more nominally in the next year than they made the last year to pay off those debts.
Okay.
So when each dollar is making less of an impact to GDP, that means they have to continue to print more dollars to make the same impact on GDP. So as we go into the end of this life cycle for fiat, the pace that they're creating new dollars is increasing exponentially. At the same time that the pace that they're creating new Bitcoin is decreasing exponentially.
So we feel confident telling people, like, we're about to see the most money printed humans have ever seen, period. Whether that's something to be excited about or not, it's, I mean, something you certainly should be raising an eyebrow at because, yeah, regardless, they're going to print the most cash we've ever seen.
So whether you believe Bitcoin is going to take over as the world's currency or not, your goal is to beat the money printer. And as the money printer turns up more and more, it becomes harder and harder to beat.
Yep.
And that list is getting shorter and shorter.
Your list of options.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For how you're going to beat it.
Right.
And at the top of that list is Bitcoin. Because in that inflationary environment, you're looking for hard assets. And what's the hardest asset? There's no second best.
It's been proven. Since its conception, since its Genesis block, January 3rd, 2009, there's been no other viable option for store of value that even competes with Bitcoin. Like, I mean, it's obvious, but if you had decided to store your value in Bitcoin in 2009, you'd be the richest person in the world right now. But that's obviously an outlier, anomaly type of situation. But regardless, since 2009, this monetary instrument has been the best store of value anyone could have ever decided to use.
Mm-hmm.
So then, if we go at any angle, however way you want to dice this, it's like you could take an ethical perspective. Now,
That's a nice perspective.
Now, if we're debating, okay, so we already saw that purchasing power, Bitcoin wins. Ethically and morally, it's like when a centralized party is creating a new supply of dollars, that means that centralized party is devaluing everybody who uses dollars by increasing the supply, and then they take those dollars and then they spend it. So that's the trifling. Trifling?
Trifling.
Trifling dilemma? No. Triffin's dilemma? Something like that. Something like that. Anyways, it means that the centralized party that creates dollars, they spend the money first. So when the dollars are created, the economy doesn't know it until they enter circulation. And the way they enter circulation is by them spending it. So not only are they creating it and devaluing everybody's, but they're spending it as if the economy, like before the economy recognizes that they exist.
Yeah.
So they're able to purchase more. And then that's why the closest you are to the money spigot,
Right.
the more beneficial it is and lucrative.
I look at it like going back to the time and energy thing. Like the very top, they are stealing your purchasing power. And that encourages the next man to steal. The next, and then the next, and then the next, all the way down to the common man, who is actually the only one actually producing something for society.
Mm.
And so this system encourages the next person to steal. I mean, I grew up that way. Like, we were all taught, how do you cheat your way up to the top, or how do you like convince people to buy your product, even though in the back of your mind you're like, you might not think it's the greatest product. Or how do you snake your way up to the top?
Don't work hard, work smart.
Yeah, like, I mean, that's why, like, I went to Dartmouth. I was like, I'm gonna get a good job, snake my way up to the top somewhere, make a lot of money, and then that's where I was like, I always knew I wanted to do good for the world. I was like, that's the route I have to go, because that's the only system I know of. I have to go this system and then spread my money. Or you can just learn about Bitcoin, find out that there's a new system, and it's the complete opposite, and you can just start doing good right now.
And the incentives. So yeah, you're talking about the incentives are not to produce value for society. They're not to serve others. The incentive is to get closer to the spigot. Whatever that means, you have to do whatever it is that the cartel wants you to do. The cartel being the central authority printing the money. Okay. If the cartel says, hey, we need somebody to do this, this, and this, and you're going to be close to us. But if you do this, this, and this, we don't want that, so you're going to be far from us.
And we're going to steal from you.
Right. Either way, everybody's getting stolen from.
But I mean, the people at the bottom get the worst.
You're right. The furthest from the spigot, the more of the negative effects you get from the money creation. But when the incentive becomes get close to the spigot instead of serve others, then that is the theft, the layers of theft built on top of the fiat monetary system.
Yeah. And this is how I once felt my mom and her boyfriend, because she's a teacher and he is a construction worker. Like, those are two of the most important jobs in the world, in my opinion. And they get paid the least. On a Bitcoin standard, those people, we're going to minus the bankers, cut however many bankers we have because they're not needed. All you're doing is learning how to steal, learning how to cheat. But those people like me with Bitcoin, are going to pay those teachers and the road builders way more than I would ever need a banker. Because those people are actually producing for society. And when I want a road bill, which is more important than someone trying to figure out how to cheat, I will pay them the Bitcoin and they will get Bitcoin. So those people will be the ones that are using their time and energy in the most efficient way, serving others and getting paid the most. That's why I have Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like any banker, any third-party institution for that matter, is like their main job is just figuring out how to get a slice of your pie and as much of it as possible. Like, however many stops your money has to make along its like journey through whatever transaction you're trying to make, every single stop, that entire entity's main goal is to figure out how to get as much as they can out of your transaction. And if we're operating on a Bitcoin standard, that entire system goes away.
Yeah. And I don't, let's make it clear. We're not blaming anyone. We're not like, talking down or making it seem like they're doing bad, but it is getting hard to ignore Bitcoin. And we're trying to explain that there is this new system, but that old system without that old system, Bitcoin might have not been created.
Right.
So it's like, we have to appreciate, and that's the only system like our parents grew up on. So like no one knew better. Like we have to appreciate it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care how bad it was. I love the fact that happened.
Well, yeah, I was putting food on my table growing up, put a roof over my head growing up.
And like if you were able to make that much money in that system, or like get close to the spigot, like, great for you. Like, that's impressive
Yeah.
because the odds were against you.
Yeah.
But now the odds are in your favor.
And I want to make clear, like, there are honest, hardworking people in the fiat monetary system. Mm-hmm. So it's like, if you were able to create wealth for yourself and be successful in this system, we're not saying you're evil. Like, we're literally capitalists. Mm-hmm. But free market capitalists at its finest is what we want, is what Bitcoin provides. So if you made money in the fiat system, we're not hating you.
Yeah.
And yeah, so this
was a good little rant.
Well, it's not over.
Well, there's more.
Because what we're saying is that effectively, if the centralized party that we can call a cartel, if the cartel of central banking gets to create the incentives for where people spend their time and energy, they're effectively controlling human behavior at a societal and economic level.
Forget Democrats and Republicans and the government controlling you, and forget the idea that they get to dictate how you treat others and how you think you're valued. What the Federal Reserve is the one controlling our country, is what we're trying to say.
So when people become incentivized for not acting with their authenticity, then we create a dark world.
Where are we at right now?
Because people are essentially expressing themselves in a manner that's not true. They're not being true to themselves in how they show up in the world and how they serve others. They're literally serving a man-made human central banking authority saying, if you want to eat, do this.
Yeah, this is how I value you. This is what I think you're worth.
Does this mean we're about to get into the CBDC versus Bitcoin?
Well, I mean, yeah, I mean, kind of, because that's
where that system is heading.
Well, yeah, but either way, it's still fiat. That's still fiat money versus Bitcoin, whether it's a CBDC or a dollar.
But yeah, I mean, a lot of people might believe in the CBDC. So let's explain why they shouldn't.
Oh, yeah.
We just did.
We did, totally. I think a CBDC just takes it one step further, where it's like they have complete control of your bank over every single dollar that exists in your digital dollar account, where they're like, oh, you're doing something that we don't want you to do. Well, now you have nothing. Click of a button.
Well, let's just think about how many of our closest friends and family we know that are just like stuck doing a job because they feel like that's what they have to do in order to get by. And it's like more like 125 years ago is like, that was never the thought process once. Like, if you wanted to make money, then like you literally had to identify something that you were great at. And if you're great at something, that probably means you enjoy doing it. And then from there, you figure out how to make money doing that. And like, that's how you figure out making money off of your passion. Right. And as a society, we've completely lost that. Like, we've all just been brainwashed to think like we just need to subscribe to whatever corporation we think is doing the best, and like we're going to become their minion. And that's not the point of living as a human on planet Earth.
They dangle the dollar in front of you and they say, hey, do you want this? Well, then do this.
Yeah, most people would say also, well, I don't have enough money to buy Bitcoin or dollars to buy Bitcoin. And I would just say, don't buy your Starbucks tomorrow morning.
Yeah.
Put it into Bitcoin.
Don't buy your Starbucks. Don't go to the bar this weekend and buy 10 mixed drinks and burn $250 like just like that buying drinks at the bar. Stop gambling. Stop building stupid parlays. Stop going to the casino playing blackjack. Like, literally start figuring out how to conserve the cash you're spending your time and energy to earn.
Yeah.
It's really all that, like, it's that simple.
There is another nuance to that, because there's a scarcity mindset where it's like, if you think, ooh, I don't want to buy anything. I need to hoard all my Bitcoin because what if I don't have any money? What if I'm going to run out of money? That kind of mindset of hoarding, I mean, I kind of think the opposite, because when you think like, oh, I can go get my Starbucks coffee because obviously I'm going to make this $5 back today. In this next 10 minutes, I'll make $5 back. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like,
The more you hoard, the more you can give away. So
yeah,
that's what I'm talking about. Sure. There's that too. I was just talking about what I just said.
yeah. I mean, I'm
most
against
people
hoarding.
most people, I'm talking about the fact that most people do believe in hoarding. So if you already believe in hoarding because you've been controlled like that,
You might as well hoard Bitcoin.
you may as well hoard Bitcoin.
Yeah.
It's the best asset you can hoard.
Yeah. So
Hoard. That's a weird word.
So the reason, I don't know, I want to go a little bit further on this expression of authenticity, because if the central authority is controlling the current of money, like the flow, that's why we get currency, because the central bank is directing the currency. So effectively, they're directing how humans are behaving in the economy and what jobs are done and who gets paid for doing what by their central authority to do so. And that creates the inefficiency. Any human manipulation within nature creates inefficiency. Like when we breathe in oxygen and breathe out carbon dioxide, we don't need to control trees to take in carbon dioxide and to give out oxygen. That is just the symbiotic relationship of Mother Nature that God has created for us.
Yeah.
It's perfect. We don't need the man-made manipulation to create inefficiencies. Like they even advertise it as, we need to create money so that we can create more efficiencies, so that people don't starve, or so we don't have crises. But it's flat out gaslighting.
Yeah.
Because it is the money creation and the manipulation in the first place that's distorting Mother Nature.
More money, more problems.
So then they say, okay, well, now we have this crisis, so we need to print more money to get out of this crisis, which then creates the next crisis. Like the business cycle is literally a cycle of money creation, creating the crises. And now we're experiencing more crises, more drastic and more often, because we're coming into the end of the cycle.
Yeah.
So let's go back to nature, because you're not saying like humans should be wiped off Earth because nature is perfect. You're not saying that, right?
No, I'm saying humans are nature.
Yeah, like it's a co-creation thing that's happening. You're co-creating with nature, and that's this thing. That's what's crazy to me about Bitcoin, is that it follows the laws of nature, but humans made it. And it was made because of our old system.
We don't know humans made it.
Whatever. But we use it. So we use it. It's a co-creation with nature.
We use oxygen.
Yeah, it's co-creating. We can use oxygen to create more things that are good. So it's like the goodness of humans combined with the goodness of nature into this thing called money. That we can all use to advance ourselves. And I would say that's why, to me, that's where volatility comes in. Like Sailor likes to explain the river thing. Like, I appreciate nature because of its volatility. Like, I recognize its power. Like when I see a storm and the fact that the next day or even a couple of hours that it could be a completely sunny day, that is what is enticing to me.
Yeah.
And that's why I want to go connect with it. I want to be a part of that.
That's a
and
good point.
we've created this thing where we can all connect with the laws of nature and use it. So let's talk about volatility. Because the dollars.
Well, hold on. I just have one more point to make about how it connects to nature.
Okay.
Because, for one, when we have a system with rules but no ruler, like the ruler is effectively Mother Nature. But the way that it works is without a man being in authority, without a dictator or a tyrannical authority, whatever, without any man authority, the behavior within the network is all based on human action.
Human emotion, yeah.
Emotion.
Or we're talking about Christ?
No, I'm more talking about
The network.
I'm more talking about human behavior. Like what humans choose to do is more natural because there isn't a authority that's not God telling them that they should and guiding them and brainwashing them to do something else.
You're saying the natural human's nature is to do good.
Yes, and I'm also saying that Bitcoin incentivizes the authentic human behavior, which is nature.
Right. I mean, I have a question for everyone. Who wants us to all go to war?
No.
I'm pretty sure nobody.
Yeah. Well, unless
That right there tells me that we are inherently good.
well, unless you're the left-wing politicians who were just photographed signing missiles for CrowdStrike.
Right. I mean, they're brainwashed, but like the majority of people do not want to go to war, and I'm sure deep down those people don't either. They just are forced to.
Yeah.
But yeah, the humans have their inherent nature is to do good and to serve others. I fully believe that. And Bitcoin completely incentivizes that. Money. We can even talk about money. I believe money is a tool created by God to incentivize people to do good.
Yeah.
Like because we couldn't really figure it out with money. I mean, there's a lot of good that happens with the fiat system, but like now it's fully up to nature and humans co-creating with nature to do good.
And then not only are humans now incentivized to act in their authenticity because there's no ruler telling them not to or not allowing them to, but the network itself is literally grounded in real world physical energy, because that's what's going into the computers that are decentralized around the globe. They're taking in energy to secure the network, and they're incentivized to do so because it's profitable.
Yeah, I mean, that's where I think that the energy infrastructure is going to go. It's incomprehensible what we're going to be able to do with electricity.
That's the part
energy.
that's like damn near inconceivable and like impossible to explain to people, because like the main thing with the laws of thermodynamics is like the second law of thermodynamics is there will always be waste product of energy. Like there will always be wasted energy. But Bitcoin has literally created a system where there is no longer any wasted energy. For example, picture a cold environment where there's a mining facility. The energy being put into the mining units are then being used to run those units, but then the waste product would be the heat that those mining units are producing. Well, if it's in a cold environment, that's free heat that you're then using to like keep you warm. And that's literally coming from the Bitcoin network. So like that right there just broke the second law of thermodynamics.
There is no such thing as wasted energy.
I think
Energy can only be, or can't be created or destroyed.
I think what breaks the, what do we call it, an ambiobatic system, an endiabatic system? Ambiobatic? I don't know. What breaks the how energy doesn't escape is because all of the resources that are contributed to Bitcoin being a closed system of 21 million, there's no leak.
Yeah.
You were talking about the mining.
That just like a physical example of how like there's literally no wasted energy.
To your point also, like we're not, like when people think we're wasting energy mining Bitcoin. One, you're not, because it's creating the money that we all want to use, and we're going to create more from that. But two, there's ways that people are already using the energy from Bitcoin mining and using it for something else.
Yeah.
Plus, it incentivizes people to invest in creating new technologies that harness energy.
Right.
Because if you can harness energy cheaper, then your profit margins are greater on mining Bitcoin. And you could do it anywhere in the world.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to be in a city.
Yeah.
Or you can literally be anywhere in the world harnessing energy and being profitable with Bitcoin's network.
Yeah.
So like that incentive structure then creates more abundance of energy in a more distributed across the world. So like that's literally a reflection of human flourishing.
Yep. That's where it gets uncomprehendable how abundant everything will be. But let's go back to, I want to talk about, because we get this a lot, like the Bitcoin's too volatile. And so price is just a reflection of how humans are valuing things, including Bitcoin. So the cool thing about Bitcoin, which I love telling people, is that it is purely you're watching humans react to the value of Bitcoin when you're watching the price go up and down.
Yeah.
And you can't see that anywhere else. And that's like where Sailor's like, well, do you like rivers that go side to side, and like you want the most energetic thing in your pocket?
Mm-hmm.
And in the fiat system, there's all the manipulation happening at the top and in between. Like Bitcoin is a 24/7. The fiat system is 9 to 5 and only on the weekdays.
Yeah.
And there's all this stuff happening in between where then they're controlling stuff, when Bitcoin's price is just a straight human reflection of that volatility, of that powerfulness, and how humans are valuing that.
Yeah.
And soon it's not going to be that volatile anymore. But like, let's talk about how volatility is good.
He says volatility is vitality.
Mm.
So, and what he does is harnesses Bitcoin's volatility and then provides the market with varying degrees of volatility from harnessed Bitcoin volatility. And so if you don't want the massive upside and massive price fluctuations, then you buy his convertible bond and you get your I mean, I don't know what all the metrics are, but like you can buy varying degrees of Bitcoin's volatility, and that's where the life comes from.
That's where, like all of life. That's where I was talking about nature. Like there has to be volatility for things to exist.
And I think like,
But yeah, I wanted to just bring it back into dollars
yeah.
for
Well,
the people.
Yeah, and going into the dollars part is like a measurable thing that I at least have been paying attention to a lot recently would be the exahash of Bitcoin. So going back into the mining stuff, the amount of energy that's being put into the Bitcoin network is a measurable unit of data. It's called exahash. And so the exahash is basically telling us how many miners are being plugged into the Bitcoin network at a given moment. And so if the number is increasing, that means more units are being plugged in. And if the exahash is decreasing, that would suggest that more miners are being unplugged and being shut down, therefore insinuating that the Bitcoin network is not as active as it was if the number was higher. And so like that in and of itself like causes the price of Bitcoin to fluctuate, because the number of participants will dictate, the price of Bitcoin, basically.
Price follows the hash.
Price follows hash.
Generally.
Yeah.
So effectively what Michael Saylor has created, given that he has recognized where these two monetary systems stand and how the world is migrating to Bitcoin?
Wait, can I? Because we just talked about how he provides varying degrees of volatility, and that's for the varying degrees of understanding.
Certain,
If
yes,
you don't
certainty.
understand Bitcoin, but you want exposure. Like my dad, he buys MicroStrategy. He doesn't fully understand it. He doesn't fully understand what we're doing. But I'm like, Dad, you need exposure. He'll buy MicroStrategy, and he'll buy that lower understanding, lower volatility. But the more you understand, like we have never met a Bitcoiner that the longer they study Bitcoin, the less they buy. That is not a thing. The more they study Bitcoin, the more they will buy. And that's why that's why every Bitcoiner just says, do your own research.
You know, what's funny is like, I've only ever seen people go from fiat to Bitcoin, and I've never seen anybody go from Bitcoin to fiat.
Yeah.
That's where everybody is going.
Yeah.
And so given this transition period, which we could call, Saylor calls the next 10 years, like this 10-year window, as the gold rush era for Bitcoin.
And I could not agree more with that. Like I, without a shadow of a doubt, believe that that is exactly what's happening right now.
So what Saylor has effectively created with MicroStrategy, the company, is a funnel for wealth going from fiat to Bitcoin. And his ability to funnel wealth is like a slippery slope. So the more wealth that he funnels into Bitcoin, then the more wealth he can funnel after he funneled all that. I don't know. It's like that's all these reflexive flywheels.
It's just like it's just a snowball
And then
effect.
he creates funnels like our fund, where we're funneling with him.
We're creating our own funnel, utilizing the fuel, this is back to that analogy of crude oil and Bitcoin, where crude oil will provide the varying degrees of explosiveness in the fuel. Saylor provides the varying degrees of volatility in Bitcoin as fuel for funneling wealth from fiat to Bitcoin. And what our fund does is we take his highest volatility product that he provides and we fuel our jet with Bitcoin Profits Hedge Fund. We fuel our jet with his most volatile, highest octane Bitcoin product. We use that to accumulate more of the Bitcoin as we're in this transition period.
Mm-hmm. And let's get back to just MicroStrategy as like the reason he does this is because he recognized I am a big enough institutional player that I can do this. And he's like, I want to do this for the goodness of people. And so let's just talk about adoption, institutional adoption. Because were we about to end?
Don't keep going.
Because we started this off saying it's hard to ignore. Like, let's just list off some more, off the top of your head, what else is happening? The ETFs, fastest growing ETFs in history.
Which actually, as a matter of fact, just surpassed the gold ETF today. So the BlackRock's Bitcoin ETF, as of today, just became BlackRock's most valuable ETF.
Oh yeah, and we're talking about BlackRock. Those guys that are buying Bitcoin, by the way, people.
BlackRock is
all day.
BlackRock is the most world-renowned financial institution. They control the most assets in the world. They have the highest AUM out of every financial institution in the entire world. And the BlackRock or the Bitcoin ETF that they created is their best performing ETF ever made. It is their fastest growing ETF ever made. And it is now their largest ETF ever made.
And they bought $1.1 billion worth of Bitcoin yesterday.
And this is where we tell people follow the money. Like plain and simply, like follow the money and do your own research.
So there's companies like BlackRock, the largest financial institutions. There's companies like MicroStrategy, we're creating these funnels for people like us and for everyone. And then, yeah, we talked about Microsoft in the last podcast, where now other companies are looking at Microsoft or MicroStrategy as a company. Other companies are starting to adopt Bitcoin. And then we're looking at the election, where it's like, we're creating a strategic Bitcoin reserve, and who knows what Trump's going to open up for Bitcoin, but he's pro Bitcoin.
You're right. And
And so, yeah, we're going from like individual institutions to now nation states.
Every individual, every company, every institution, every nation state, every family, they all have a choice for which monetary system they choose to subscribe to. And people are now realizing, oh my gosh, Bitcoin is 1 gazillion times better than fiat.
Mm-hmm. And one thing that I like to remind myself of is, and some other people help me, is the fact that there are people like us every day talking to a new person about Bitcoin. We're telling our neighbors about Bitcoin, at least getting it in their head.
I did today, walking my dog.
And that is where I believe that Bitcoin's going to spread. Like, people aren't gonna buy it until these institutions buy it, when you don't have to wait. Like, your neighbor tells you to buy Bitcoin, you should probably buy Bitcoin. If multiple neighbors are now telling you to buy Bitcoin, you should probably buy Bitcoin.
Yeah, it's the speed of information. Like, if you're choosing to be someone who's going to wait for the information to trickle down to you to like then give you the green light that makes you feel confident, okay, Bitcoin's okay, I can invest in it because they told me, that's when you're too late. Like, we're just average people. Like, we're
Well, you're never too late.
Well, yeah, you're never too late, but like, we're just young men who have found Bitcoin, who are very early and are here telling you that this is what you need to do.
Yeah, and we tell people this all the time. Like, we could just sit on our Bitcoin and be set for the rest of our lives, but we believe in what Bitcoin stands for, and that's serving others. So we'll spend our Bitcoin to, one, make more Bitcoin, and two, to help others.
Right. That's why I was like, I'm not hoarding my Bitcoin. I'm spending all of it.
Yeah, to give more, to produce more.
But yeah, some quick stats though, just some quick stats that are my personal favorites to ring out to people is like, first of all, the same amount of people using Bitcoin in 2024 are the same amount of people using the internet in 1999. And then,
wait, let's put the
internet adoption versus Bitcoin adoption chart.
Yeah, let's put that up there. Let's put up the newspaper article from like 2001 saying Bitcoin or the internet is just a fad, because all of these same media narratives are happening to Bitcoin.
Yeah, but then, yeah, my other favorite thing is the amount of Bitcoin wallets, the amount of Bitcoin addresses that hold 10% of a Bitcoin. So if you're looking at it as a number, 0.10, the amount of wallets that hold that much Bitcoin is less than 4.4 million people. So we can also assume that, that's less than 4.4 million people actually owning 10% of a Bitcoin, because people spread out their Bitcoin in multiple wallets. So with that in mind, with a price of Bitcoin being $76,000 per coin, that means an initial investment of $7,600 puts you in a class of people that's like 0.00004% in the world. And I'm not trying to say like 7,600 is nothing. Like, everyone should just be able, like, no, that's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that type of investment already puts you in that type of class of people.
And they're all great people. The Bitcoin community is the best community there is.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like Bitcoiners are going to have the majority of the world's wealth here pretty soon. And we're lucky that Bitcoiners happen to be the best people in the world. The majority of Bitcoiners is like a concentration of great people. So the world's in good hands.
It works out perfectly.
Because, I mean, it really is just an entire group of entrepreneurs, which that's what America was built on. Just individuals all trying to figure out the best way they could serve each other and build their family and grow wealth and build a family house. And, it's just how you need to operate if you want to be a sovereign individual is you need to be able to produce for yourself.
So we did this thought experiment last night where Bitcoin's market cap is worth 1.4 trillion and there's around 900 trillion of global store of value assets. What happens when 1 trillion from the 900 trillion that exists, what happens when just 1 trillion realizes that Bitcoin's the greatest store of value asset humanity's ever seen?
Yeah.
Like, when
The small percentage of gold holders that realize, oh, Bitcoin's the same thing as gold, but better.
And so we did the math. $1 trillion at $75,000 Bitcoin would be 13 million Bitcoin. There's only 19,500,000 in circulation right now. You're not going to find 13 million Bitcoin at $75,000.
Because
For a second.
You'll find maybe like 500. I don't know. Maybe that's low. Like the multiple for what $1 going into Bitcoin, what that relationship is, it's like anybody's best guess. Like you can back test it and kind of trying to figure out how much inflow came in today and how many Bitcoin were sold and how much did the market cap go up. Like you could create these multiples. But if we're talking about simply 1 trillion of this 900 trillion of global assets coming into Bitcoin, and I would say a conservative multiple of 50, like $1 going into Bitcoin increases Bitcoin's market cap by $50. I think that's wildly conservative. And 1 trillion moving into Bitcoin puts Bitcoin's market cap at 50 trillion.
yeah, and people like us aren't going to sell their Bitcoin.
Even
That's
after
why.
that. Yeah.
That's why, because if you're looking for 13 million Bitcoin and you got us sitting over here saying you're never going to pry this from me, and you actually can't, no matter what you think, like you're not getting my cold storage Bitcoin. There is the majority of the Bitcoin community that's realized that's not going to sell their Bitcoin for any amount of dollars because we see this transition happening. So we don't want dollars.
Yeah, we most certainly do not want to convert our Bitcoin into paper money.
That's where I believe price discovery starts.
Yeah. And then effectively we could pop 35 trillion to the Fed and say, screw you. Like we're on a Bitcoin standard now. We don't even care.
Yep.
Take your $35 trillion.
Yeah.
And then we have our strategic Bitcoin reserve and we live happily ever after.
We become a self-sovereign nation again.
World.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Because then this is also the nation state game theory.
But we also don't believe in like one world alliance. Like we still believe in like nations.
Well, whatever nation has the most Bitcoin and can serve the people the best will be the nation everyone goes to.
True.
Well, Jesus said, go make disciples of all nations.
Correct. But there will be borders always.
Sure, there'll be borders, but like technically, I mean, I don't know how open the border would be, but it's like
We don't. No one knows.
Yeah.
well, yeah, but each nation could have basically a relationship with everybody and free trade with everybody because there's no authority.
Well, yeah, and it's people like me that I'll go help out that nation.
Where if every nation can then do what they're best at, follow their own passions, use whatever natural resources they have at their disposal, and come together.
Well, and there's
It would be like whatever nation expresses whatever you like or something.
But there is already real world examples of this, like El Salvador, who they've completely turned their country around, and no one knows that. Like we obviously know that well, but like if you talk to this random person off the street and you bring up El Salvador, they'll be like, "Where is that? Like, what are you talking about?"
We didn't even talk about how that countries have already adopted Bitcoin.
Yeah.
And it's just like, because you're in America, you're not experiencing the struggles that those countries went through and the reasons they adopted Bitcoin. But America is heading down that same path.
And those countries,
Not anymore, but
well, yeah, those countries adopted Bitcoin because they started experiencing hyperinflation. They experienced their fiat currency being completely debased, being turned completely worthless. And each of those nations have turned to Bitcoin, and they've each started flourishing.
Yeah, and because in America, the inflation isn't as bad.
Yeah.
You're not like seeing it like they are. They're not seeing Bitcoin for what it is like they are. So yeah, it's already being adopted.
It's happening.
Bitcoin will be Bitcoin.
And this era of peace and prosperity for humanity, like, I can't even imagine how wonderful it's going to become.
Like that Tim, I can't get over that Tim's podcast. Whatever his name is, we'll put it up
I
there.
think it's Tim Scott.
Tim Scott. He was talking about what we're talking about, but with AI. Like, what happens when like AI is creating art or like just doing your job? Like, people think of that as a bad thing, or like even Elon's robots doing our jobs. Like,
Cleaning the house.
that's freaking awesome.
Yeah.
Now I can go express my natural self and what I love to do.
Yeah.
Gives you more time to figure out what you're great at, what you're passionate about or passionate with, and then from there you can figure out how to make a living doing so, which I feel like is, I mean, what we're kind of all told is like the golden story is like, no, you just need to go do what you love and you'll be happy. And like, you look around and no one's really doing what they love.
No one's really happy. But combine AI with Bitcoin. Like, who even knows like what our kids, what kind of life they'll be living, a completely different life.
Plus all of the redirected resources towards serving others.
Yeah. It's gonna be fun.
Unprecedented.
Yeah, and then I mean that's where I get into Bitcoin, is this transition to a world without money. You don't want to get into that?
Let's keep
way
money.
down the line, maybe.
Let's keep money for now, because we're in a transition between monies.
Well, I still think it's time and energy is money. However you look at it, time and energy is money. And Bitcoin is moving us to where we're all serving others, to the point where I don't need anything else. I don't need a bigger house. I guess I'll need more food and water. Who knows? Maybe I won't. I don't need anything else. So I'm just going to go do a favor for you for no reason. And you'll do one for someone else or me for no reason. Because no one needs anything else.
Well,
That's a heaven on earth.
that's making disciples of all nations.
Yeah.
So we can get into more of the spiritual side next pod. I'm more than down.
Everybody wins on Bitcoin.
Everybody wins on a Bitcoin standard.
Screw your politics. We're all human. You don't need to hate someone for who they voted.
Everybody love everybody.
Everybody love everybody. Go buy some Bitcoin. Take a chill pill. Take a deep breath. We're all going to be okay.
Is that a wrap?
It's a wrap.
Learn Bitcoin, buy Bitcoin.
Do your own research. This is not financial advice.
Do you not get the concept?